yeah, I can try to answer stuff as we go. I also want to let you guys know I will be available if you want to message me. You can email me, gethookedonpainting@gmail.com, or Facebook me, whatever. Just I can be there for you if you have after the fact questions. Remember, you can rewatch this. So if you're following along with me right now, don't get stressed out if I get ahead of you. You can always go back and kind of watch again. So hi guys, I'm so happy to be here. This has been a really heck of a weekend with the Farm School Conference. Friday night was awesome last night, and I just feel really honored to be in such great company with people that are trying to spark some change in this crazy world that we've got. So tonight we're going to be going through the steps of how to create, I think you can see it in the background, some rolling hills. We've got a big giant sun that we're going to put on there. This could be a sunrise or a sunset, depending on how you're looking at it. I was inspired by this painting as kind of the KC Farm School logo. And I know Callie's on here. I think her son Max is painting along. So I'm excited to see what you guys got. And it was actually Max's dad, Sean Sainham, that did the logo. So we're really going full circle here. Without further ado, let's get started. We should have, if you're painting along, you've got like a big brush. I've got a big brush, a medium brush, and like a tiny brush. Sometimes I only use 2 brushes. We also have the primary colors, so red, yellow, blue, and then in this case, we've got brown and white. So when you see green or orange, we're gonna be mixing those colors ourselves, and I'll show you the recipes as we go. So let's go ahead, and I think I'm gonna start with this kind of more medium-sized brush. Some of you that got the kit, this is a little bit bigger, but it will do the same thing. I bought new brushes for the kit, so mine is all used up. You've got fresh brushes. What I'm going to do to start is we're taking this kind of medium-sized brush, and I'm just going in. You can see the brown here. Melinda, don't be scared. I decided to change my mind on the order of directions. She was with me for my practice run earlier, so I'm changing it up. It's okay. So I just have a little bit of brown paint on here. We don't need a ton of paint. All we're trying to do is get a little outline for our hills. I am going to stick this brush in the water, just a little tippy toe of water on your brush. And then you're going to bring that in and just mix it all up. Just get your paint a little bit diluted. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we want to get some layers of hills here. And a good way to do that, my canvas is a little bigger than the 11 by 14s in the kit. And I did that just for ease of seeing it on the canvas, but the dimensions or the ratio should be about the same. So I'm going to come in kind of the lower part of the canvas here, and I'm just going to go and make a little dip like that. If I show you that up close, that line's not really great. I kind of ran out of paint and I'm not worried about it. So we're not trying to be having perfectly finished brush strokes at this point. We're just kind of getting these shapes in. Let me go in and get a little bit more paint. And what I'm going to do is come in from this other side, and I'm just going to do another little dip. You can see how those two kind of overlap each other. So we're going to go in and add a couple more layers of hills, and you just need to make sure it's almost like a zipper effect once you get it in. Let's do a few more. You don't have to count the exact amount of hills. Let's see, maybe I'll come in and do one that comes up like this. I'll do one that comes like this. So I have a few layers here. If you've got a smaller canvas, you may not need to add as many layers, but let me show you that again a little closer. You can see this little guy right here. Finish him out. Something like that. And then I'm going to go in and I've just got this one hill I'm going to put in the middle. Let's see. And we'll just go like so. All right. So again, I'm not super worried about my actual lines at this point. You can see up closer, kind of sloppy. That's okay. Trust the process. So this will kind of go out in layers here that we're going to add on. And we tend to kind of add the finishing touches at the end, which will really make it sparkle. So Let's go in, and now that we have these, I want to come in and start to work on the sky a little bit. And since we've got this ginormous sun, let's go in and start with some yellow. And what I want to do, a cautionary tale from me to you, is we just did these brown lines here, so they're still going to be wet. We're still going to take the yellow kind of up next to it. Just be very careful. You don't just go in and pick up a bunch of wet brown paint and smear it into your yellow. When you're loading your brush, I usually take the big brush out of the water, tap it. I should have told you guys to get a cup of water. I forgot about that. Probably. You guys all seem like pros. So just tap, 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 and then give a little squeeze on your cloth. So you want to get a lot of that moisture out. The big brush holds a lot of water. When you load your brush up, you've got a big pile of paint. And I just want you to kind of pull a little bit out. This is, I'm going to call this a loading dock. So you want to get your brush loaded on both sides. And then you're going to go in and pick up a little bit of water. And you're going to mix that in to your paint. So we dried our brush off to only pick up water and add water to our paint later, but that way we can be in control of how much water we're adding. So I'm going to come in and just start, again, I'm being really cautious right here. We got a little sassy thing over there. There's a photo shoot happening in the studio right now. So you're hearing cries of joy from people that like their photographs. So I just loaded my brush up again. You may have noticed I dipped in the water just a little bit. Every time you load your brush, get a little bit more water and mix it into your paint. So what I'm doing is just coming in here, and I want to go. I'm going to go about halfway up my sky. So whatever size canvas you're using, I'm just going to kind of go. Whatever space I have here, I'm going to take it about halfway up with my yellow. A little bit more water, a little bit more paint. We've had so many great discussions today on how to create change and sparking action. When I signed up to be a presenter, I was asked about my story and discovered I'm really bad at telling it. So I guess my main message and point is that sparking change is happening with very small changes that we do. So even something as simple as painting a painting can spark a change that leads to other things. So I'll tell you more about my experience after I tell you how to do this blue sky. You got to toggle back and forth. So I'm rinsing my brush out, and when you do that, just really knock it around in the bottom of the cup. Tap, tap, tap. And then squeeze that brush dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm trying to act quick enough that this paint is still wet up here on the canvas. And I'm going to come in and just, again, load my brush that same way. You've got a lot of paint here. Just go in. This blue is really, really strong. So just come in and get some blue paint on your brush. Pick up a little bit of water. And then I'm just going to mix that water all up in here. So this next technique is going to be showing us how to create like a nice blended ombre effect from the blue to a light blue to the yellow. So I've got my yellow paint here, and what I'm going to do is take the blue right up at the top. So I'm going to try to leave. It's almost like, remember how I said, you know, whatever size canvas this is, you're going to go up about halfway with your yellow. You're going to come in, whatever space you have left here, come in with about half blue, and I want you to leave this chunk in the middle white with canvas. Let me get a little bit more paint on here. Melinda was helping me with a practice run earlier, so just trying to formulate the steps and how I was going to do them and story and all of that. And I had mentioned to her that I was probably about 32 years old and started to feel like something was missing in my life. And I had a real yearning and feeling that there were creative endeavors out there that I was not allowing myself to have time to do. One of the hardest things is just to allow yourself the freedom to explore things that you're interested in, because the things that you're interested in are things that your intuition is telling you you need. So when I was about 32, I decided I would learn how to play the guitar. And so I spent several days, it took me a few days to do. And then I was great, got in a band. No, it was several hours of practice every day, but it was healing to me and it felt like medicine. And if you had told me when I started to learn how to play the guitar that I would be teaching people how to paint a few years later, I would have thought you were crazy. But I do believe that when we take a step to spark a small change in our life, it leads to other things that we could not have possibly imagined. So imagine this, we're gonna make this blue and this yellow somehow blend together in a perfect ombre fashion. So both of my colors of paint here should still be wet. Now I'm taking white. And what I'm doing is you maybe can't see it very well. There's a little wet blue paint, but I'm putting white right in the middle of these two colors. And what I want to do, so I have a layer of wet white paint here. And that's going to be important. I'm getting a little bit more paint on my brush, a little bit of water, mix all that in. And then what I want you to do is come in. And what I'm doing is I'm taking this brush and I am going all the way up into the blue. So I'm picking up the blue paint on my brush from the canvas. And then I'm going to use that to drag down. And what should happen is that should blend right into this white paint. So that gives us the blue to the light blue with a nice fade. I'm going to rinse my brush off again because I have a lot of blue paint and yellow and blue make green. So I'm going to get a lot of this paint off of my brush. And I'll go in and I'll get a little bit of white paint again. Wash the brush off, give a little squeeze. And picking up some white paint on my palette. Look, you can't see because it's a white plate. So I'm going to come back in with this white right in here. And you really want to make sure you're not going in with a dark blue against a bright yellow because you will get like a grass green. If you go in and you just kind of use your brush and you let a little bit of the light blue mix in with the light yellow, you should get a nice blended effect. Let me show you that up close here. All right, and I will tell you the hardest part about painting, especially when you're doing a class. Now you guys can take all the time in the world because you can rewatch it, but I'm gonna just let this be. So it's hard to stop doing brush strokes, but sometimes that's all you got. So let's go in. I'm rinsing my brush really good. You can hear me kind of tapping it around in here. Tap, tap, tap. Squeeze that brush dry. This is a paper towel. I usually use a washcloth, but I had to use the washcloth to prop my camera up to get a good angle. So, all right. Now that we have our sky in, we're gonna let this kind of dry before we go in with our sun. So we have these rolling hills and we're gonna do a technique that's similar to what we just did up here, where we take the two different colors and then we blend them together. So when we've got these rolling hills here, if you can make the top of them a lighter yellow, and then at the base here, if we can make that a darker green, that will give us the illusion that there's light coming in, shining over the hills. So let's go in. Let me get a little bit more yellow paint here. So I've got my big brush still, and I'm gonna load my brush, kind of like I showed you guys earlier. We're gonna do a little bit like that. Let's pick up a little bit of water. Mix that right in. So I think what I'm gonna do is just show you one hill kind of from start to finish so that you can see how that works. So I'll show the technique, but then I'm gonna go in and just repeat it on all the hills. So if anybody has any questions, I say a lot too, like one of the big things people do on a regular basis is cake on too much paint. So if you're having trouble with blending, for some reason our instinct is to add more paint of whatever color we think we need. It usually works out a little better if you clean your brush off of all paint and go in with a clean dry brush and then just use that to blend what you already have. And sometimes if it starts to be a little bit too thick or mucky, just let it dry for 5 minutes and then you can kind of go back in and touch it up. So, okay, so I have some yellow paint on my big brush. What I'm gonna do is come in. So I just chose this hill because I feel like it's easy to see. And so what you can see here is that I've just painted half of that hill. And this is going to be the first color that we mix. So you may remember that yellow and blue make green. So I would say for this recipe or the green that we want, it's probably about a 50-50 mixture. So you can scoop up some yellow. And again, I don't need a lot of paint, it's just a little bit. And then I'm going to get a little bit more, about that same amount of blue, sorry. So about the same amount of blue to yellow. So what you can see is that's making a pretty dark green there. So what I'm going to do is go in and I'm going to paint the bottom of this hill. Okay. So you can see I have those two colors next to each other. I even have a little gap in there, that's okay. So the technique that's going to give you these hills, I'm going to wash my brush off just so I can show you the blending part. So when you have those two colors next to each other, tap, 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 dry off. So clean, dry brush, catch this while it's still wet. And the important thing is you start on the yellow. So if you go straight into the green and drag it up, it's probably going to be pretty dark and you'll miss that kind of golden highlight. But if you put your brush on the yellow first, go back and forth a couple of times on the yellow. Let me do this closer. And then you come down and you start to pick up some of this green. So it's like my brush is going right in between. And I am dragging this green right up into the yellow. So I'm not really leaving any of the plain yellow exactly as it was. It's going to get a little bit of green dragged up into it, but you can see you can get that nice highlight and shadow. When you repeat that throughout this whole painting, it really gives the illusion of that light coming over the hills. So since I just blended and I got this green paint on my brush, I'm going to go ahead and rinse it off. And so what I'm going to do now, instead of doing instructions on each hill, I'm just going to go in and paint. So it's a good question time. If you have any questions. It's also very interesting. I was just talking about, learning how to play the guitar, and somehow, a few years later, the sequence of events that led me to start teaching painting, when it was first presented to me as an idea, it was like, what? I like to paint for fun. And then I tried it and I absolutely loved it. And one of the things that I really got satisfaction out of was people would come in and be terrified to make a line or to not make it exactly perfect. And it's a 2-hour class. So the first hour is usually me just being an anxiety coach with people to just get them to get the paint on the canvas and forgive themselves for their perceived mistakes. They weren't real mistakes. And then at the end of it, people being mind blown by what they could paint. And so I think anytime you just step outside your comfort zone and try something new, there's always a small little reward, and you don't usually know what that's going to be, but it's fun to find out. Now, some of your green, like this green paint is still wet. So when I'm up here painting this here, I'm just being kind of careful that I'm not going in here and picking up all that green paint. As you can see, I'm just painting the tops of the hills yellow. I'm probably painting fast enough at this pace that my paint's not going to dry before I get to it. But if you're doing this at home and you do all the yellow and then you go back to blend and some of that paint's dried, it won't blend like it should. But you can always just add another layer of yellow paint, pick up a little bit more water on here. All right. So yeah, so fun. I love this. I love the farm school logo, and I felt like when I had to design a painting, I thought this would be a fun and easy way to kind of do some easy painting techniques here, where we're just doing some blending and some light play. I got all this yellow on here, so now I'm just going to go to that next step. Always remember, wash your brush out in between. Tap, tap, tap. Okay, I might need a little bit more yellow too if there's. Hopefully you guys with kits, I gave you enough yellow. Your canvas is smaller, so it should be all right. But we want to mix up a little bit more of that green now, so I'm just going to follow that same recipe. My husband's up here as an assistant, so he's grabbing me some more yellow paint. But I'm going to go ahead and just do that same little recipe where it's like half yellow, half blue, a little bit of water. So you're just going to go in. And I'm just using this big brush. I do plan on going back in with the small brush and just cleaning things up a little bit when we go in and we're going to add our crop rows. So I'm getting a little bit of this, just getting some green paint, but I'm not blending yet because you really want to make sure you rinse your brush off before you do that. Okay. If you're mixing your greens up and you get slightly different shades, that's okay too. It'll look more realistic. Anytime you look at like actual grass on a hill, you'll see various shades. Going in here, my paint is still wet. So again, you can see kind of closely right now during this step, I'm still a little sloppy.
6:39 or 6:40.
Okay. So a little bit more yellow, a little bit more blue. Mix it up. Okay. Here we go. I found the farm school through Facebook, my friend Melinda, and Pop Freeling started posting about farm school. I guess it was probably over a year ago. Does time mean anything to anyone anymore? Do we know? Where are we? What time is it? Right now, I'm just blending just to kind of give you an idea of where I am. I just have the dry brush. I'm going in, but I like the, I guess it was the first statement about how we all feel this, need for change. And I had started to be more interested in growing food and gardening. I'd grown some tomatoes, but as my daughter was, I think she was around 2 at the time, and I started seeing, oh, there's this farm school and it's only 10 minutes away from my house. We just moved into Strawberry Hill neighborhood. And again, speaking of just going to do little things like make a scarecrow with your daughter, and now here I am teaching this painting party. Hopefully, you just never know. Let's see, all right. And then Melinda asked me, I think it was for their fundraiser last year. She knew that I played guitar and sang some songs. She approached me about writing a song for the farm school. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like something I would be into. And so hopefully if we have time at the end, I've got my guitar here. I might be able to do a little ditty for you guys. I'm just doing some blending here. And then I'll go ahead and say that's pretty good. So you can see up close here, there's still gaps. I know that if, this might drive you crazy, but it's okay to have that. We're gonna go in and we are gonna clean that up with our small brush. So it's looking pretty good. Oh, I'm blocking my picture in the background there. Okay, so I'm rinsing my brush off. Sorry, this is that kind of more medium-sized brush. You could also have personal preferences. So some people like to work with a tinier brush, and you should have both of those as an option. So just kind of feel out what is best for you. On these lines here, I'm going to do a little bit of perspective with our crop rows. So I'm just using that kind of medium brush and some brown paint. What I'm going to do is go in. We'll start with this. We did this hill first. So actually, you know what? I'm going to go right here in the middle. So I'm taking this and I'm doing just a vertical line here. So if we want to add some perspective, we're going to consider this point right here as the vanishing point. So all of our lines are going to radiate from this point here. And so that's going to just be like that. And they can be symmetrical-ish. Let me show that to you up close. So that will kind of get you, and we don't have to do this on every single hill. The other thing that I sometimes do, this is up to you. If you want to slightly go over some of your lines, see, I'm just going back and forth with my finger here. You can see it just softens them slightly. So however you want to get there, there's all kinds of ways. Let's see. All right, now let's do that perspective move on a couple more of these hills, and then we'll just get some more straightforward lines in here. So maybe I'll do some perspective over here on this hill. I'm going to do a straight down. It's fun to watch yourself in a different view of painting in this selfie mode. Getting a little bit more brown paint here. Okay. And I'm going to come in, do that same thing again. And you can just go in. Now, if you've got too much paint with your brown lines and you go in to do that, it will get everywhere. So just try kind of go light with the paint. And remembering pretty much every time I'm loading my brush, I'm adding more water to the paint. Okay, let's do, and I do have these lines. They're not real tiny and skinny. One of the very last finishing moves is I like to just go in with the tiny brush and do like a little highlight. So again, different kinds of ways to do things. Maybe on this hill up here, maybe on this one, we'll just do some, let me hold this closer. We're just gonna do some lines like this. So on this one, we're not really doing the, we're just letting those kind of come over the hill like that. Okay. And maybe on this one, let's do some easy ones here. We can just come in with maybe just some vertical lines. Now you may, I'm kind of just going in, I'm doing a line, I'm turning my brush over. Again, you can kind of smear those out. If you're painting along too, I always encourage people, get up every now and again, step away from the canvas. You can also take a photograph with it, with your cell phone, but we have a tendency to really beat ourselves up. So really like step back, look at it from a distance. Bet you're doing better than you think. I was surprised how nervous people were to paint, even though I was nervous to start too, but it's good therapy, that's for sure. I'm taking this brush too. Remember how we had some little gaps? So if you want to go in and sort of clean up some of the areas on your hills. And then we're really just going to go in, we're going to make a big sun. Oh, I got to get lines on this one. Let's see. What should we do here? I want to do another perspective one here. So I'm going to pretend like, there we go. That's the straight line on this one. And then I'm going to go in and do my line out from there. See that? Okay. Oh, haha, see, that's a happy accident. I'm just going to take that and oh, look at those shadows that were cast. Okay. So I'm just cleaning up a little bit, and then we're going to go in and get this big giant sun in here. And I'm going to still use that same brush I was just using. I'm going to use that same brush, but I'm going to switch over. We get to mix another color. So I'm going to do just a little bit of yellow. I'm scooping up some yellow. Now, if you remember that ketchup and mustard make orange, we're looking to make like a secret sauce. The red is a lot stronger than the yellow. So maybe when you're mixing up the orange, just kind of tippy toe some red in just a little bit at a time. And you can see that just that small amount right there really makes it bright. So I'm taking this, I'm gonna get some water, mix it into my paint, and then I'm gonna go in and just do a really dramatic sun. You can kind of start wherever. So the cool thing is, that because this is getting all filled in, when you do your outline, if it's not like a perfect semicircle like you want, just go in and keep working it until you get the shape that you need. And what I usually do, so with this bright orange, I'm going to make this outline like, let's see, a little thicker. So you can go pretty thick with this outside orange here. And if you look at this, like the brush strokes, still not great. I'm going to come in and let's put, so I've got my wet paint around here, and I feel like we're expert blenders at this point. So it's the same technique. I'm going to go in, I'm going to take this big brush. Ta, ta, ta. Okay. And all I'm going to do is I'm just getting a little bit of yellow. Obviously the color behind it is yellow also, but I want to take some wet yellow because it's dried. So if we come in and go right in here, so I'm getting a little bit of wet yellow below. It's like you want something to be able to drag that orange paint down into. So I'm getting a little coat of yellow paint here. And then I start to go up and touch that orange. And we're going to bring it right on down like that until you get like a nice little blended sunset. The sun rays are actually pretty simple. Keep them simple. I like to do, let me see. Sorry, needed my brush off. Okay, so for the rays, I'm just going to use, you can use the tiny brush or the medium brush. You might have a favorite by now, but maybe just a little bit on the smaller side. Now, what I'm going to do for this is just pick up a little bit of yellow, and I'm just going to come in, and you're going to do these rays, but I go in and I kind of use my finger, blend it out so it has a little bit of a softness to it. Okay. Yeah, I like to just make them mini rays as you want. You know what? I'm going to switch to the big brush because this one's too wimpy. These initial rays are pretty big, so. All right, there we go. I felt like it wasn't really showing up very well on there, so I'm going bolder. Must be fearless. So get your big brush out and go for it. Oh, look at that. I got a little bit of green or blue on there. You guys can't even see that. I caught it right in time.
Melissa, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. I am just so you can't really see the yellow on top of the yellow. Get some rays in like this. Now you can go in with that smaller brush if you want to go in and get some of that orange paint that we mixed up for the sun. You can come in and you can do a little bit of that inside of the bigger rays that you did. And now you'll actually be able to see some of these off to the side. So I'm just adding All right. That is right, but you can see you add the yellow and then you come in and you add a little bit of that orange paint. I could go a little thicker. And here with some of this color. All right. Well, as we're wrapping this up, I just want to say thank you again to the farm school for including me in this. And I know I was feeling like everybody's really pumped up to move forward and feel like we have some power in the world. And let me just do one little finishing touch here on the rose. You can take just a little bit of light color here. They're in the closet. Uh-huh. I'm gonna turn this around here in a minute so you guys can see. I do want to do my song. I may not do every single one of these, but if you can see how I just added a little, oh, look at that, little bit of highlight in there. All right. That was fun. I'm gonna, hopefully you guys will reach out to me with any questions or concerns. Send me a picture of your painting. I would love to see them. Yeah, I'm gonna get my guitar out and play this little song. Hopefully I have. Thank you so much, Marcella. I'm gonna have my husband hold the, let's see, just like aim it at me. I don't have a guitar strap, so I'm doing this. So this song is one that I wrote with the input from Melinda and the farm school, but hopefully this kind of sums up their message. Good things are growing down on old Gibbs Road. They're giving power to the people using shovels and hoes to grow seeds out there. So underneath the big blue Kansas sky, folks are coming to the farm in the hopes to unify all walks of life. We're giving back to the land, taking charge of our destiny. We can plant a little seed and unleash an opportunity. Unfortunately, due to inequality, not all communities have access to fruits and veggies. But health is ours to reap. We don't have to rely on the powers that be. Change certain fear with you and me. Hey, hey. Let's learn to farm today. It's a new kind of school. Give us tools that'll help us survive. The knowledge isn't lost, just forgotten. We can help it revive. Put our devices aside and interact with other human beings. Wear a mask, digging in the dirt, making friends with the birds and bees. Digging in the dirt, making friends with the birds and the bees. All right, happy change, everybody.